Can't glaze Andor enough. I think that show is a masterpiece, and I think the reception and the absolute booming success of it speaks for that. People want good Star Wars. They're just not getting it often. Very rarely with something like Andor coming out. Star Wars Outlaws falls into the really uninteresting bucket of Star Wars that people just don't want to play with anymore. They don't want to touch, they don't want to indulge with. But there is still very much a lot of people wanting good Star Wars. It has nothing to do with the IP, with why Star Wars Outlaws flopped. But Goober is still trying to write it off as one of the contributing factors that the game suffered from a number of items. First, it suffered from the fact it was released at a time when the brand that it belonged to, was in a bit of choppy water. And then he acknowledges some technical problems, such as things missing polish, but they were polished and debugged early enough, but it had an effect. Which, again, like, yeah, there were some technical issues, but that is not the main reason that it failed, nor is it the strength of the IP during your release window here. You made basically the exact same copy and paste Ubisoft open world game again. No one wants it. Just accept it and do something different. The final little nugget from Ubisoft today is in regards to them loosely addressing Stop Killing Games, or more so, what they believe Stop Killing Games is about. And it's not the best response, but it's also being misrepresented by some publications with what he was actually saying. So apparently, Ubisoft CEO Goober was asked to respond to the movement at a recent shareholders meeting and said, regarding the petition, we operate in a market, and whenever we release a game, we provide a lot of support for that game. We also provide a lot of services to make sure that the game is accessible and remains playable 24/7. Wow, what saints. How unique. These heroes make sure a game is accessible 24/7, huh? That's never been done before. Holy shit. Crazy concept. Whoa. You mean even on weekends you can play your games? It's so stupid. Ubisoft does the absolute bare fucking minimum. Anyway, though, moving on. Goober says that the company provides information regarding the game and how long the game can be played, though he doesn't go into specifics about how those notices work. The crew, this is speaking in particular about the crew, did have a badge on its front box noting online connection required. You should have known better. You weren't actually buying anything. You were paying to rent. We were giving you a permission slip to play our game for however long we deemed worthy. And the notice in the fine print on the back that Ubisoft may cancel access to one or more specific online features upon a 30-day prior notice. Jumping a bit forward, he says, but this kind of issue is not specific to Ubisoft. All video game publishers are faced with that issue. You provide a service, but nothing is written in stone, and at some point the service may be discontinued. Nothing is eternal. And we are doing our best to make sure that things go well for all players and buyers, because obviously support for all games cannot last forever. The article then notes that this is not what Stop Killing Games is trying to do, trying to get perpetual support for the rest of fucking the galactic existence of these games or whatever. That is, again, not at all what it's looking for. Anyway, though, he goes on to say, the lifespan of a piece of software, whenever there's a service component, eventually services may be discontinued, but eventually the software may become obsolete over time. A lot of tools become obsolete 10, 15 years down the line. They're no longer available, and that is why we release a new version. And so we have version 2 and then version 3, but clearly this is a far-reaching issue, and we're working on it. Now, maybe I'm being too charitable in my interpretation here, but from this statement from him, it sounds more like he is identifying that this issue of games ceasing to exist once the development cycle has concluded is an issue that is not exclusive to just Ubisoft, and currently what Ubisoft does is just pull the plug and give players a notice of the impending doom. And he also makes a mention that games can't be supported by the developers forever, and then goes on to talk about how other tools also become obsolete and don't exist forever. It sounds more to me like he's just making a general statement about it, which he's right. The development on a game can't support it forever, which is why it's not what Stop Killing Games is asking for. It is asking for end-of-life plans, so that way when the development cycle is complete and they want to wash their hands of the product, what they do is they would have a plan in place in order for that game to be turned over in some way so that the community that paid for the game can still access the product they paid money for. It can still exist beyond the developer's need to support it. It is not an unreasonable ask. There have been so many game industry veterans with decades worth of experience in the industry coming forward to talk about how important something like that is and how reasonable and feasible it is as well. It is not some like ridiculous request or anything. It is very much doable. And what a lot of articles have run with from the Ubisoft statement is when he just made a mention of the support for the game can't last forever. And to me, that wasn't like the whole crux of what he was trying to say. And again, maybe I'm being too charitable here to Ubisoft Goober, but with the whole statement, it seems more like he's just identifying it is a far-reaching issue, and it is something that isn't exclusive to Ubisoft, but it is something that he also says that they're working on. It doesn't seem like he was trying to harp on that statement, like, can't support it forever, as like what Stop Killing Games is about. It doesn't really seem like it was targeted and trying to spin Stop Killing Games as that, like I was initially led to believe from the articles that were talking about it. When you see the whole thing, I think it paints a little bit of a different picture. Of course, I'm still no Ubisoft enthusiast here, and of course, Ubisoft isn't exactly happy with this direction, I'm sure, but it doesn't seem like he was trying to misrepresent Stop Killing Games as demanding that we support forever. So, anyway, I still don't love the statement from him, because I still don't love the way they tackle it. I do appreciate that he says they're working on it. I guess we'll see if they actually do. But anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how Ubisoft is going these days, because, yikes. Not very good. It doesn't seem all that positive for Ubisoft. And I don't know when they're finally going to have their come-to-Jesus moment and start making good games again and start making decisions that make sense in the industry. That's really about it. So yeah.